Welcome to Travel Market Life. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. And in this series of the Hotel Tech Clinic, we are looking at different technologies that are going to change the way that hotels approach technology and digital transformation. We've already looked at robotic process automation, robots, the role of blockchain, as well as staff and guest management tools, and the heart of the hotel, the property management system. If you haven't had chance yet, please head to travelmarket.life for all the recent podcasts, as well as some new features on the website that includes upcoming virtual events and other podcasts that we highly recommend if you work in the travel industry. Well, today we're going to be talking about the age of automation. And joining me will be Brendan May from HotelResBot. Now, HotelResBot has featured occasionally on some of our programs if you've had chance to listen to them. And it's particularly as an example of automation and how effective machine learning can be. And joining me, as I say, is the founder of HotelResBot, Brendan. Hi there, Brendan. How are things going for you?
Hi, Ryan. Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. I'm glad to finally get you on since, as I mentioned, HotelResBot has been brought up in numerous conversations, particularly during the Hotel Tech Clinic masterclass that we had, and really how you've developed a tool that really is based on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the efficiencies that it can bring. I mean, would you say that we're in the age of automation now?
I believe that most definitely. I even talk about intelligent automation because I think it's important, or it's useful at least, to separate kind of automation we've done in the past from this next wave of automation that we can bring on. Where really we're starting now to be able to automate things that 20 years ago, when I was sitting in the reservations, I only dreamed of and thought, wouldn't it be nice? And now, astonishingly, it's actually possible.
I mean, you know, we've come a long way in the last 15 years with channel managers, revenue management systems, property management systems now on the cloud that can connect multiple applications and just allow you to have more flexibility and agility in the type of tools that you use, depending on the size or type of hotel that you are. And obviously, that's also helping cater to guest demand, but also bring greater efficiencies. And the old manual, tedious processes of data entry must be coming to an end, surely, at some point. And this is where machine learning really brings the advantages to technology. And it's something that you've really harnessed within HotelResBot. What brought your passions with artificial intelligence? Because it's been around for a while. So, I mean, you've had a lot of patience to get to this stage.
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, I really love to tell a bit of a story about how it took an entire generation for electricity to actually be used in a new and innovative way to increase efficiency. I have a picture that I use in a lot of presentations where you can see a steam-powered manufacturing plant with an electrical light in the background. And I think that's a fantastic example. And to be honest, machine learning was invented in the 60s. So we're quite old in terms of the fundamental concept. I think the biggest difference now is that in the past couple of years, at least in the area that we're focused on, which is natural language processing, so understanding what a human has written and having a computer do that, there have been great strides in the past couple of years. So as it often is, we're standing on the shoulders of giants right now. Although that being said, we are not actually using any of those giant softwares like Google Dialogflow or Wit AI because they're not tailored to the hospitality language. I think you and I and most of the people listening to this conversation will know that we speak some different words. We speak a different language here in our industry.
We do, and I must say sometimes I get confused and I think that someone's talking a completely different language, even though I've been in this industry for 20 years. It's remarkable to realize that each sector had its very specific language. And I guess, you know, if you're dealing with these email inquiries that are coming through, you don't know what you're going to get from a language perspective. You don't know if someone's in a rush. You don't know if someone is using a second language. You don't know if someone is new to this industry and so they don't actually know how to present what they're asking. How do you get your head around that and build a machine learning code in order to respond to all of these different challenges?
Well, to be honest, the most important way is training sets. So it sounds really boring, and to be honest, it is pretty painful and boring, that part, but it's for a good cause. But the core, or one of the core ways to train an AI to do things is to send it hundreds of thousands or even millions of cases. And what I mean by a case is an email where a human has gone through and said, this is exactly what you should understand from this email. And if you can feed enough of those to the AI brain, then it starts to be able to understand these things. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that HERA can understand things like double for single use, or DBU, or DSU is another way that we see people request this kind of room. Very common among regular guests to say, hey, I'm a corporate guest, I want a double room, but actually I'm only a single person. And we've trained HERA initially to recognize that if somebody's asking for a double room, then they mean two people. Because quite frankly, the biggest challenge of reading an email is not reading and understanding what the person wrote, but inferring what they meant when they only told you half of the story. So if somebody says a double room, then we can generally infer that they mean two people. Unless they say double for single use, then they certainly mean one person. And this goes deeper than just understanding and extracting the words. This is really understanding the industry. And that's how far we've gotten today in training the AIs.
And I mean, you are looking at different audiences as well. I mean, you've got travel management companies, corporate travel programs, as well as you say, even individuals who have a corporate program who will be emailing to make these bookings. And the approach from each of these people will be very different. That has to be processed. And I understand that HERA has quite a high level success rate, something around 95% of being able to understand what is in the email and being able to provide a relevant response to that.
Correct. Yeah, there's a couple of different levels of understanding. There's the understanding of the intent. So what does this person want? And then there's the ability to extract, for example, if it's a booking intent, all of the dates, all of the number of people, the number of children, the age of the child, and all of that level. So actually, for understanding the intent, we're well above 95% now. If we're looking at understanding everything in the email, in English and German, we're well, I have one example of a property here local to me, and I was looking a couple of days ago at the numbers, and January I noticed. So I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was 900, high 900s of requests for this one property in a month, and HERA was able to answer 722 of those, and understand all of the data in that. So there's definitely a high degree of understanding that the AI can do today. But you're absolutely right, talking about how different people write. A corporate guest will typically write something like, hey, here are my next 3 stays that I need, Monday to Thursday, please confirm. They're definitely not looking for an offer. They want a booking. They just want it fast, now done. You'll see group requests where they write really crazy long lists of things. You'll see individual requests where they start telling you about the grandmother's birthday that has nothing to do with the stay. Some really interesting things. So it's very different cases, and actually that's what we had to train HERA on, each of those individual ones, because you really have to break it down and understand what does this person really want and expect, and then you can actually build the process off of that. So it's been a journey for sure.
I mean, you would have think that we would have been past email when it comes to booking by now. I mean, with all these booking engines, geez, you've got all these special corporate booking engines. I remember working for companies who gave me the corporate Expedia login and I had to make my own bookings. Why are there so many emails, Brendan?
Well, great question. I have a lot of ideas. I don't have, in all cases, all of the reasons. But I think the number one reason is that it's actually the most comfortable way for a lot of people to book. And at the end of the day, we as hotels need to basically listen to the way that people want to book with us. And if we look at the numbers done by Roland Scheck, in Switzerland, who has done a European distribution study every couple of years for the last, I believe, 10 years or so, email has been quite stable. It's not dropping, contrary to popular belief, and it's at about 20% of the total revenue of a hotel. So 1 out of every 5 bookings is coming per email.
And that really doesn't actually surprise me. If I think of my friends who run travel management companies and events companies, or those who work in corporate sales within a hotel, and the number of requests they get from a personal contact that they have either within the hotel or within the corporate entity looking to make the bookings, it's that personal relationship. It's that I'm going to get a better deal by going directly to that person rather than going to the booking engine, which, as I guess, adds that level of personalization. People feel special. They feel that they're getting exactly what they want. And I guess that is something that we're not going to see change so much because that's just human behavior. And the way the HERA works is that the email comes in, you then process that information to identify what their actual request is. And then that feeds right through into the property management system to identify what the availability is and what the pricing is in order to compile an email that will then be sent over to the inquiry with all the details of the pricing and the bookings, right? So everything is done for it. There's very little or no human interaction in that process.
Well, I mean, it can be done to a high degree of automation. But then we come back to this question of why did the person send the email in the first place? In some cases, it's as simple as I went to your website, you threw 5 different room types at me, 3 different rates, I'm confused, please send me 1 or 2 offers. That's actually one of the main reasons that especially in leisure, that people write. If we think more about that corporate person, or we can handle that person who feels that they have a relationship with someone in the hotel, or does have a relationship with someone in the hotel. There, it's really important to look at how the human and the automation work together, because the human is driving this process. And we think about HERA as an assistant for the reservation agent, doing the annoying tasks for the reservation agent. So you're right, when the email comes in, HERA reads it, understands, aha, this is a booking request, goes and checks the availability rates and inventory before the agent or that sales manager has even seen the email. And so when they open up that email, they get right away the availability and then can focus on that personal relationship. So especially as we go up in terms of the star levels, there's more and more expectation on that personal messaging. And so we think about this email as basically the first part of the email is that personal message from the res agent. The second part of the email, where the offers are automatically input by HERA, that's the automated part. So it's really 2 different people or 2 different entities working together to respond back to that guest. And HERA is definitely not going to put in that personal touch. It's an AI, but she can do that boring stuff like checking the availability and those rates and putting together and adding in the COVID messaging into the email. And so it's this beautiful matching between standardization and then personalization as well.
Human and robots working together. Who would have thought?
Absolutely. Run with the machines, not away from them.
But I mean, this is the thing, though, about NLP and particularly how AI responds to sentiment. And understanding the depth of sentiment there and that relationship. And there's no reason, I guess, why not in another 5 years' time that they won't be writing the entire email. But that would have obviously been based on the relationship that would have been developed between the two parties. So that human element is always going to be, well, I'm hoping it's still going to need to be there. Otherwise, we may as well just be locked in our apartments, living alone.
Well, I'm convinced that the human element is absolutely essential. There's no question in my mind. And I mean, I come from as well a revenue management background where it was a similar topic of humans and machines working together to get a better result. You can really see, or I like to think about those things that a human can do better than a machine. And there's no question that if it's a one-off or a unique situation, when it's guessing or inferring stuff from very limited data, this a human can do far, far better than an AI will ever be able to do. And this is why humans will always be in the hospitality industry, because it's an important part of this is the uniqueness. On the other hand, the AI is there to free up the human from not doing the boring, repetitive stuff, but actually focusing on the stuff that makes a difference for the guest. So it's really about freeing the agent to provide better service, rather than the AI trying to take over the service relationship.
Now, I mean, over the last few months, COVID-19 and all, and as we try to build back the economy and the return to travel, have you seen greater interest in the automation tools?
In fact, it's been a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. Quite a number of people who we've spoken to sort of 9 or 12 months ago in our earlier days, who said, oh, that's kind of interesting, but had maybe a little bit of fear of automation, or perhaps we presented it in a way that was a little bit more scary than we should have done. And now they're coming back and they feel a big deal of urgency to implement systems like HERA because, quite frankly, there's, the situation, I think, is fairly clear. My revenue management side kicks in. We're going to have to deal with lower revenues for a while, probably. And at the same time, our costs are increasing. And if we look back to historical experiences, the biggest, or one of the things you shouldn't do as a revenue manager, don't drop your rates. But the second thing is don't drop your service level. And this is the thing I'm most concerned about for hotels right now, because I think about, 2000 and 2008, or 2001, 2008, our last kind of bigger crises in the hotel industry. This is where the online travel agencies were able to build out their business enormously based on price. The OTAs today have automated bot systems that are answering questions immediately, that are actually, Booking.com, for example, handles over 50% of the questions with their booking bot. And if hotels are not careful and we don't have the right resources to service our guests right now, telephone, email, and also the in-house guests, and what we're effectively doing is pushing them to online travel agencies by saying, oh, if you want the service, go to the online travel agency. And I think that is really dangerous, because it's absolutely a really dangerous thing to teach our guests that the OTAs are the place where you get the service, because this is what we have always had as the hotels.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one thing you don't want to be taken away from you. And we perhaps saw that during the cancellation of all these holiday trips, that actually OTAs did not respond well. They were not providing access to customer service. It was near impossible to get hold of anybody. And that's where the hotel actually were able to play a greater role. We're able to keep in contact. We're try to help their future guests with their bookings, which we've seen a great frustration from some OTAs, particularly particularly for me, I've seen in the UK from the fact that, refunds weren't processed or updates weren't provided regarding their bookings. And this is where the hotel can start to take it back. But I mean, are there other pushbacks that you see from hotels? I mean, are there any things that sort of make them nervous or unsure or just feel that they're definitely not ready for this sort of technology?
Maybe just one little quick story before we get that on the topic of cancellations. One of the first things we did when COVID-19 hit was we went out and we built a kind of credit process that HERA can help our customers with. So we were able to send with HERA a rebooking voucher essentially to any guest. So hotels were able to very quickly send their guests a confirmation that your money's not gone, but we're offering you this voucher and even adding additional services on that voucher for free to make that attractive. And that was very useful for a lot of our customers. But you're sorry to jump out on there. Your main question was about resistance to AI. It's not that I want to avoid that. No, I mean, I think in many ways it reminds me a lot about the same challenges I had when I was helping hotels implement revenue management. It's an understanding that this is not about explicitly replacing the reservation teams. What it is about providing them a tool to be able to do their job more efficiently. But certainly we've made some missteps without a doubt in terms of how we've communicated that. We've talked maybe a little bit too much about automation and brought up ideas in people's mind that seemed a little bit too scary. As well, I think one of the lessons that we learned as well is to make sure that in all of the things you do, the res agent is really in the driver's seat and feels that they are in control. So if you go too far with automation, you can feel that you're losing control of the automation. So it's really important to focus on the human and computer interaction and understand how does that human control the AI. So we're not in a world of the AI getting out of control and taking over the world, but still a res agent feels a very strong quality requirement and a connection with their guests. They don't want an incorrect email to go out. So they really want to be able to see what HERA would like to see and choose which offers are sent out. And we've certainly been able to, together with our customers who forgave us some missteps, to find that perfect balance between having the system, having the AI automate a lot of the stuff that really a human doesn't have to do, but not taking away any of the jobs from a human that are important for either the human or the guest that a human doesn't.
But I mean, it's certainly important to take that step towards automation and the use of AI. I mean, it's. I think we had this brief conversation before we came live recording here. Was we're at where we were with the internet 20 years ago, and it's about grasping it. It's about embracing it. And as we saw with hotels, with the OTAs, if they had embraced maybe the internet faster, then maybe the OTAs wouldn't have taken over such a large share of their business. But obviously we're sort of there foregazing on some better on hindsight, right?
2020 hindsight is easy.
So I mean, and we're seeing it every day, aren't we? Our automation, everything that we do, whether I'm using my Google or I'm trying to get somewhere, or you're on the phone on a customer service and they're asking you to tell you what your inquiry is without actually speaking to a human. We're in the world of automation. It's artificial intelligence is here, but it's about embracing it within your business.
Absolutely. And sometimes I think it's a disservice to talk so much about AI, because AI is in many ways a kind of empty statement that promises a lot but doesn't really deliver anything, because there's no intrinsic value in essence to the AI. It's all about it can help solve particular challenges that you have. And I mean, to that point, we are so used to artificial intelligence that we don't question so much of it anymore. It's just totally normal. Who questions today the incredible power of a Google search algorithm? This is a kind of artificial intelligence. This is definitely machine learning. This is a lot of, this is stuff that we're not scared of anymore because it solves a particular need. And Google doesn't actually talk about the fact that it's AI. It just talks about solving this particular need. And sometimes I think we need to focus a little bit more on that. Although, of course, AI is interesting to wrap your head around, and for geeks like me a little bit, it's interesting to always think about how can we apply this set of capabilities to solve particular problems in hotels.
And I mean, what do you see the next developments in NLP or robotic process automation, particularly within hotels? Do you see there's a gap there or in the travel market?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's still in many ways the beginnings. We're at text right now. I have, to be honest, a long-term vision of walking down a street, pressing a button on WhatsApp or whatever the chat messenger of the day is, and saying, dear hotel, I'd like a room for next week. Please confirm for my corporate rate. Boom, beep, beep. And then a couple of seconds later, I get the confirmation in my email or via WhatsApp, however. So I guess that's giving away a little bit of where we're thinking. We're not just thinking about text-based messages. And certainly not just email, but email is the #1 text-based message. Unfortunately, it's 20% of the revenue is email, 0.5% is chat or text-based messages, but outside of email. So we know where the important part is. But 17% of people still, or of revenue in hotels, still, I say, is going per voice. People are calling the hotel and saying, hi, I'm looking for a reservation. And as we know from what Google has been doing already with a hairdressing appointment, it's definitely possible to take that voice language, convert it using similar processes with the NLP, the natural language processing, and then do stuff with it. So there's a long journey that we have ahead of us.
Indeed, we do, and I think it's a long journey for the entire travel industry ahead of us. But hopefully, with these new technologies and the acceleration of digital transformation and people really bringing in and digitalizing these services, they can bring greater efficiencies to the way they're delivering their business and provide a better experience for both their staff and their guests.
I think that point of better experience is really, really key. Because and I don't want to knock on the booking engine folks, because I think they're doing a great job, but we have to admit that, and the numbers tell us clearly, less than 10% prefer to book on the hotel's own booking engine. And even if we add, the OTAs and the own booking engine, we're still talking about just over a third of people that prefer that method. There are a lot of challenges, and if you think about it conceptually, we're forcing people to put data into a form where the human has to come to the system. And what's so exciting about AI is that with natural language processing, the system is coming to the human and saying, I'm understanding your language. You don't have to adapt how you're behaving to me because I need it in this form structure. No, you just talk. You just write how you normally would do it, and I will understand you. That is really the key aspect behind AI, and it's improving the customer journey. And for me, that's what it's all about. So it's really reaching the guest the way they want to communicate with you and not forcing them to go down a path that they don't like.
Absolutely. So, anybody looking out there for automation and understanding a little bit more about it, check out HotelResBot and find out what Brendan and his team has to offer with HERA. Brendan May, thank you very much indeed for joining me today. It's a pleasure to speak to you again.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me on.
All the best. Speak to you soon. Well, thank you for joining us today on this episode of Travel Market Life as we look at the age of automation in hotels. Don't forget to check out all our other episodes on travelmarket.life, as well as the events and other podcasts that we recommend. We'll be coming to you with another round of Hotel Tech Clinic very soon, looking at IoT devices. Until then, ciao for now.